China claims the case brought by the Philippines has no basis in international law. Pacta sunt servanda, or maintaining agreements, is one of the basic principles. The Philippines had reached consensus with China to solve disputes through negotiation under bilateral agreements and the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea. The DOC, signed by China and ASEAN member states, including the Philippines, in 2002, states the parties concerned undertake to resolve their territorial and jurisdictional disputes by peaceful means, through friendly consultations and negotiations by sovereign states directly concerned. But the Philippines pressed ahead with the arbitration case without prior discussion with China. China says the Philippines' actions are an abuse of the arbitration mechanism under UNCLOS, the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. Beijing has revealed that the essence of the arbitration is territorial sovereignty over some islands and reefs in the South China Sea. Territorial issues, however, are beyond the scope of the convention. Furthermore, UNCLOS allows for exclusions to arbitration. In 2006, China made a declaration under Article 298 excluding maritime delimitation and historical privileges from compulsory arbitration. Some 30 countries have made similar statements.
Hello, good day everyone. So now, we will be discussing our assigned topic entitled South China Sea Arbitration, PCA case number 2013-19. So South China Sea Arbitration Philippines versus China 2016, it's a legal case where the Philippines challenged China's maritime claims in the South China Sea under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. So why it started? On 2012, China and the Philippines had a standoff at Scarborough Shoal. China blocked Filipino fishermen from that area. So in 2013, the Philippines filed a case at the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague. China refused to participate, saying the court had. So, the core problem, China was claiming historic rights inside the 9-dash line, which covers most of the South China Sea that overlap with the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. So why it matters? For law, it clarified how UNCLOS applies to maritime claims, now a key case cited worldwide. For the Philippines, gave legal backing to defend its economic zone. For the region, showed that legal limits exist even for big powers, but the tribunal can enforce the ruling. China rejected it as null and void.
Good day, sir. I am DUROTAN, and I will be discussing on the specific issues and the facts or backgrounds of the case. So these are the specific issues. First, are China's historic rights valid, specifically the 9-dash line? Second, what is the legal status of the features in the Spratlys Island rock or low tide elevation? Third, who has rights to the EEZ and continental shelf in the disputed area? And the last one, did China violate its environmental obligations under UNCLOS? So these are the facts or the backgrounds of the case. So the core catalyst was the 2012 Scarborough Shoal standoff. Chinese government ships blocked the Philippine Navy from apprehending illegal Chinese poachers, resulting in China seizing physical control of the shoal and barring Filipino fishermen. Second, it's the legal strategy. After failed bilateral diplomacy, the Philippines used UNCLOS Annex 7 dispute mechanisms to counter the asymmetric power dynamic. The legal framework forcefully focused on maritime entitlements and environmental harm, avoiding the issue of land sovereignty, which the PCA cannot legally resolve. And the last one is the China stance, of course. So Beijing maintained a policy of non-acceptance and non-participation, arguing that the tribunal lacked jurisdiction because the dispute inherently concerned land sovereignty and maritime boundaries. So in this case, China did not participate in the proceedings because they believe that UNCLOS has no jurisdiction over the case. So these issues stems from the fact that China drew a map in 1947 claiming most of the sea. Second, UNCLOS rules defining an island were too vague. Third, both nations, the China and the Philippines, claimed the exact same fishing grounds, and China rushed to build 7 artificial military islands. So these are the root causes why this dispute happened.
On July 12, 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration or the PCA released its ruling on the South China Sea arbitration case filed by the Philippines against China. This was a landmark decision under the international law. The tribunal unanimously ruled in the favor of the Philippines on almost all the key substantive issues. Let's break down what the court decided. The PCA ruling addressed 3 major points. Number 1 or the first is the 9-dash line. The court ruled that China claimed to historic rights within the 9-dash line has no legal basis if it conflicts with the UNCLOS or the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. Second is the status of features in the Spratlys. The tribunal said that none of the Spratlys featured qualify as island that can generate the 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. Most are just rocks or low tide elevation. Number 3 is the Philippine EEZ, or what we call the Exclusive Economic Zone. It confirmed that the Mischief Reef and Second Thomas Shoal are within the Philippines EEZ, or Exclusive Economic Zone, meaning the Philippines has the sovereign rights in those areas. The court also found that China violated international law in several ways. It violated the Philippines' sovereign rights in the EEZ through fishing bans, interference with all exploration and construction activities. It caused extensive environmental damage to coral reef due to island building. It illegally prevented Filipino fishermen from fishing at Scarborough Shoal, and it aggravated the dispute by constructing artificial islands even while the case was still pending. So why does South China Sea arbitration significant? There are 3 main reasons. Number 1 is it clarified international maritime law under the UNCLOS. The ruling gave a clear legal test for what counts as an island, a rock, or a low tide elevation. It also gets a precedent for how UNCLOS applies to overlapping claims and artificial island building. Number 2 is it was legal victory for the Philippines. The award confirmed that the Mischief Reef, Second Thomas Shoal, and other areas are within our exclusive economic zone. This gave the Philippines a legal basis to defend its sovereign rights against illegal fishing bans and other interference. Note that it didn't settle to sovereignty over land features, but it did settle maritime entitlements. Number 3 is it had impact on regional and global order. The case showed that even major power can be subject to international law. It became the most high-profile use of compulsory arbitration under the UNCLOS to date. Countries like ASEAN members, the US, EU, Japan, and Australia have used it as a reference point when opposing excessive maritime claims.
Bottom line, the case didn't end the dispute, but it changed the legal landscape. It turned the South China Sea issue from might meets right into a question of what does the law say. The South China Sea arbitration concluded that China's 9-dash line claim had no legal basis under UNCLOS, where it conflicted with the Convention's provision on exclusive economic zones. The tribunal found that none of the Spratly features qualified as islands capable of generating a 200 nautical mile EEZ, and that Mischief Reef and Second Thomas Shoal fell within the Philippines' maritime entitlements. It also ruled that China had violated the Philippines' sovereign rights through interference with fishing, oil exploration, and construction activities. The ruling clarified important principles of the law of the sea, particularly regarding the classification of maritime features and the limits of historic claims. However, the tribunal had no authority to enforce compliance, and China rejected the award.